start recording this session. So I would like to have everyone's approval that this is going to be recorded. See, thumbs up, go, go, go. Okay, awesome. So welcome to the design monthly discussion meeting. This was going to be a workshop mode similar to what Lisa did last time. So it's going to be discussion, lots of feedback, and I would need your help to define, as better or as more accurate as possible, the design process for a project. I know that, for example, you, Amaka, if you want to contribute with something, you are more than welcome. And any experience in the past that you all might have as well, welcome to chime in and contribute, because we're all learning here. And for that, and I probably would need Brother Ernesto or Carly's help, because I've created a document in Figma. I set the link. Oh, are you here now? Okay, I put the link on this event description, but I can share it here. If you share, copy, I'm gonna put it here in the chat as well, and you all should have access to it. Let me know if you can't access. I see people coming in. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So before we dive into this, again, created this meeting because we lack of clear documentation. I mean, there are some documentation here and there and from engineering side, but we don't have one yet in Confluence for design. I know that Lisa started with UX processes, and I've checked some of the documentation that you already have in Confluence. But I wanted to check what is, the ideal in terms of processes and what we have learned versus what we have in Bevy and what's going on, and the different problems that we have. So it's going to be like a discussion, and then like hands-on on, okay, so from now on, what can we establish in terms of phases, what communication, stakeholders, etc. So first, today, there were a couple of meetings that were active from different projects. I happened to join one. I wasn't invited, but just to happen to have the link, and I then take a look. And then the engineering, it was led by David Brock, the head of engineering, and they do the stop, and continue exercise. I like that exercise, but I think that's not appropriate for this meeting. But from what I've learned, there is that there are many miscommunications or gaps in the process. So I'd like for us to first, if you have any feedback, Lisa and Ernesto, I know you were there, from that particular, those projects that you were involved, those were private rooms and private Q&A. And briefly, if you have any feedback, if not, we'll jump right into the defining of the areas. Any thoughts? Nothing? I missed the first part of the meeting. That's why I'm...
seemed like a standard start, stop, continue meeting. And I did feel like it was a little bit better. Like if you were looking at it along a scale, like we'd done a little bit better than our last one.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit less of let's stop panicking. And there, there's still a little bit of that, but not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly just, I think it's just, I really like the regular check-in on how is it working for everybody. So, process, I like that.
Okay. Ernesto, anything to add to that? No? Good.
I think that sums it up pretty well, actually.
Okay, awesome. Bueno, so first I would like you to help, to contribute, because what I have in this board, actually I've taken this from templates. So this is actually what you see in like the main charts and everything are templates, and we might use them or not. So that's another question that I have for you. And Lisa, that you are with more experience with this type of exercises, might say, hey, no, we better use the card sorting. Or so what I did do is, to the left, I added like a list of different words that might help us build this flow, this process. And my question is, okay, so how do we build this flow? Do we need to first define the phases of the design process? Do we do that from the default and then analyze what we have? Or
so question, when you refer to the design process, right, like are we talking like design process as a global thing, or are we talking about a process that is specific for baby tasks and issues and stuff like that?
Yes,
and
good.
Then we want to scope it to a specific portion of our day work.
Yes, correct. So thank you for asking that. So I think what we need to define is projects that we work alongside with engineering, such as private rooms, for example, for virtual. That's an example. And
meaning it's already on the roadmap.
Sí.
Okay.
So, like right now, I've seen a lot of like miscommunications, or, for example, defining what comes first. If when you're designing, for example, Lisa is designing the join flow, right? And then at some point we were thinking, hey, do we ask for copy review nows or later? And then realizing, hey, no, we need to move to UI phase. And when we're doing the UI, then we need the final copy. So it's like everything is related between UI, UX, but since it's not documented anywhere in our documentation, I thought it would be a good idea to do it all together, unless you think it's better to do it in a Confluence document. But I thought this might be funnier.
I like this. I like where you're going with it. So keep going.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that I just like to determine is which type of task we're referring to, and if it's product and specific with engineering. I mean, everyone's input is great, but I don't know if everyone is as familiar with the
Of course, no,
right? So
right.
It may be a bit boring, maybe, if you're not too familiar with it, or like there might not be a lot of value for you if like you're doing other stuff. But yeah, I mean, we can go over that process. I just think we need to maybe start defining which are the type of issues that we are targeting with this process. And does it apply to product? Does it also apply to onboarding? Because I figure that onboarding may have a very different process than product, because there are completely different scenarios. Even the points where the information gets into us to know what's our next step, it's different. So yeah, maybe that will give us a bit more context to know what we are after.
I would say we can tackle this in different ways. One would be, okay, define the design process only for product projects related to engineering. Second, define design for onboarding task, which we are already doing, more or less, with David and Kate. Or the third option would be unify all the concepts related to design and then establish our internal processes for, okay, so when you have the assets requirements, I mean, the usual process that we already know, like, okay, but perhaps I'm assuming that we all know something, and then we might know.
Yeah, and I'd like to add in a third one. I think it would be considered a third separate one, where a larger project that's not yet on the roadmap, and that we have a process for that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Lots of things to solve. Maybe we should start by defining the common areas within the design process. And even though we might know them, but it would be good to have them documented. So we might encounter perhaps something that's like, I didn't know this, or I do this differently. Perhaps starting with one of the Kanban boards. I don't know which one would be best for this.
A simple flow chart will be enough to represent the design process, probably.
This one.
Yeah.
All right. Ernesto, would you like to take the lead and move the parts?
No.
Dale.
Sure.
I suck at this, so I need more
No
practice.
problem. I mean, this one is just drag and dropping. The thing is that we need to complete it, right?
So may I ungroup this thing or no?
Is that what was going on? No. It's still...
Oops! Did I do something wrong?
Well, is it locked?
No, but I don't know what I did. Okay, so I'll let Ernesto do everything. No, I mean. So maybe we can start writing.
I'll connect the dots as we are adding stuff. No problem. So
okay, maybe we can start writing to the left what we want to add, or
yeah, you write it anywhere on a box.
Let's do this.
I'll connect it.
2, 2, 2, 4.
Oh, you have to press edit file.
I know. I just saw that myself. I know. I figured everybody whose little mouse was going around was trying to figure out the same thing. All right. So if we are, okay, if we narrow the scope just of this discussion for working with engineering, so let's say a ticket, be it, let's go with an issue. And so we're going to start already with, well, we should be starting Well, it depends. Is that ticket a ticket to gather more understanding, or is that ticket to fulfill requirements that have been made? So I think that would be the first decision place, or a decision place early on.
So
And
go ahead.
Well, because sometimes there just needs to be a ticket just to establish what can be done and by what time and what are the tech constraints, et cetera. So just what type of ticket is it?
I think we're gonna start the flow when we already have the requirements, or what were
Well,
you
I
saying?
don't think I've yet had a ticket with requirements in it. Most of them have had these vague, like, here's what we kind of need, and could you get it by tomorrow? And then it is like, a month-long project or something. But if I was to go back and review tickets, except for those really little ones that you can just do right away.
No, but I think we need to start with like a step back,
Yeah.
bigger scope in terms of the process that is unifying all areas. So, for example, when a process that will involve like
Let me see if I get it. Like, are we looking for straight up just the steps of the design process? Because we don't have to define those. Those are already defined. We can just copy them in. I mean, I can do that while we
Where?
talk. Or they are defined in many places and by different experts, right?
Yes.
So we can use an outline that it's already there, try to see that that's the way that we want to keep our design process, right? But I think that it will start with a problem, right? Or the problem definition, the problem to solve, or whatever. Like most of our use cases will start with a problem, right? Like, are we in agreement there? Are there arguments there? All right. Probably after that, like the most common things will be either brainstorming or researching, right? Like those are interchangeable sometimes. So Marce, you're shaking your head. Maybe you have some.
No. See, I agree with that, but then is where we need to start digging, like with reality. Like, okay, how does it look for Bevy, right? Like, how does it look? What do we do when we are working with a project, like in terms of communication? Like there is and again, I know that this will only refer to projects that are product related, and it's fine. And another meeting will tackle more things related to onboarding, and perhaps Lisa is not going to be, super familiar as what we're talking about. But I thought that this was going to be a good opportunity to work on documentation. Otherwise, I will do it by myself, and then bring it up to you, and then say, "Hey, is this okay?" So that's why I wanted to take this space for this.
The big question that I have is that, for example, right now we're talking about, product projects that involve engineering, right? But like to me, it doesn't seem like it's so much about needing to establish the design system within our team, but it's more about that we need to establish how our team integrates with the rest of product team. And so from my experience in the past, working with UI teams and product teams, I mean, obviously Bevy has some product managers, but I don't know how involved we are with them, but they should not only be managing the product stuff from an engineering perspective, but they should also be reaching out to the design team.
Well, that's something that we would need to document.
Right. But
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so in general, for example, when something new is being launched, from my experience, is that there's obviously some sort of a kickoff meeting where ideas are generated, you know, just kind of an overview of what we're trying to accomplish. From there, you might have, based on the findings from that meeting, you know, you can also establish, you know, okay, well, how feasible is this for an engineering side, and how feasible is this for the design side, you know?
All those stuff that we think that are, it's by default, and
Right,
sometimes it's
but-
not.
Right, and it's important to establish that, because obviously we don't want to start designing something and then all of a sudden engineering comes back and says, "Whoa, this is way too much. We can't do this." But once all of that is established and all those requirements are established, it should go to the design team first, unless engineering can maybe get started on back end work, but absolutely nothing front end wise should be started until the design team is done with it.
Can we write this down? It's like, I mean, that's what sorry to being ramble with all this, but there are so many things and so many projects and so many things that are not documented, even the things that are so simple for us, but with new people, different areas, and I think there's like a miscommunication in those basic procedures, like not checking with design, you know, like, or for example. So that's why.
Help to
But-
look at the Confluence page that we already have on this as maybe as a starting point.
Do you have the link at hand?
I sure do, yeah. I don't know if there's enough there, but maybe it can be just like, okay, let's expand on this. Okay, let's add in these 5 steps. Okay, let's take this out.
Yeah, determine scope here. See. Ding, 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 ding. So, yeah, kickoff meeting, winter progress, perfect. What would be the difference in the colors of the boxes, or no?
I just did that because this is kind of part of the kickoff meeting.
Ah,
It's not like necessarily another step.
so let's move these things from here and this from here.
So not to stop us when we're making progress, but I'm really struggling with this. And one of the reasons that I'm struggling with this is because I don't think all of our processes are gonna be the same for all the different types of tasks. And I can think of my last project with engineering. It didn't have a kickoff call, and I asked for it, and it wasn't there, right? So are we defining our ideal process here for everything and every type of thing that we, because I can see different types of tasks adhering to a different type of process. There will be things that may require wireframes and exploration and a further or deeper research. There may be things that may have a lighter process because are just simple changes, like a request for an instance, right? So
Well, let's
I
define
don't
one.
think you can fit everything into one thing. Maybe we can, and kudos if we do. But that's where I'm struggling a little bit with this.
I don't think we need to have a one size fits all solution. I think we can maybe just kind of start thinking about the general, like, I would say, like, we should be thinking about what is the ideal system. Like, if everything was absolutely perfect, and everything was controlled, and everything went according to plan, like what would that system look like? I think that's a good exercise to start to set this up, and then from there, we can see what's feasible, what's not feasible, how might things change. But just from what I've seen, and this is just from the onboarding side, because the onboarding needs its own complete set of guidelines as well. I think a big trouble right now in general is that there's no guidelines for anything pretty much.
Yeah, no, that's true. And my thing is, I'm sorry if I'm sounding like broken record, but there is a different concept of ideal for the different types of tasks, which will have a different ideal process, right? So I guess I'm stuck in the middle there. So maybe we should keep going, and it'll start making sense along the way for me.
Yeah, I was thinking about the problems, the projects, sorry, that are roadmapped, and that I know that you, Ernesto, had to tackle some projects without a kickoff call, and that's wrong. So that's why we need to have that within the process. We need a kickoff call with requirements, with the corresponding stakeholders, problem definition, all that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
We wouldn't need a kickoff call to change the slider on an instance.
No, that right. So then,
So
yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say is,
what is
we
this
should
like?
start identifying the
See,
different types of potential
this
things that we're trying to solve, right?
See, this process will be for a project that requires engineering, that requires different UI, UX solution, user testing, even though we don't do it, like a proper feature release that will impact the product.
I think that's a good way to think about it, is that we can start by identifying what the ideal process would be. For example, say a new virtual feature, right?
Yeah.
So we can start with something like that. It's not going to be the same for every single thing, but I think we still need to kind of start documenting process this way.
That makes sense. I think that if you put it in a category, like saying a new feature or improvements over a feature for virtual, that's a category that we can all think, okay, we know it's going to involve engineering. We know that the product managers are going to be part of the stakeholders, like all these things that we can, start narrowing it down a little bit more, and we don't have to do like this super broad thing that probably it's not going to fit to most of us.
No, yeah, great. I like that. For example, the next project that could fit into this, one is webinars. So I haven't started. There is some documentation written by JR, but again, how this will be a feature within Bebe Virtual. So. Okay, so where is the start here? Okay. Or this one? Are we doing two charts?
No, let's try and do one.
I'll delete the bottom one. That was like the earlier one.
I put stuff over here that I think should go in somewhere. So whoever's organizing can drag them over.
What does the triangle mean?
Decision.
Decision. And it's not the.
Oh, no, you're right. Sorry, it's the diamond.
Diamond. Was looking for the word.
Yep.
Checking your document as well, Lisa. Checklist.
Mm-mm.
Pero
Ah,
don't fight.
I thought somebody had, I thought somebody had figured out how to make the symbol for other flow. You know, it's the rectangle and it has two lines to indicate it's another whole process.
Oh,
Maybe I can draw. Let's see if that'll work. Like that.
Oh, and there's no template for that?
I didn't see one.
Mm.
Let's see if there is one in my library here. Nope, just a bunch of hands. This is cool.
Someone's making popcorn.
Yeah, it's true. Here, I can put myself on mute.
No, it's fine.
My husband.
No, I'm hungry. I want some popcorn. Um, Hmm. So Lisa, this the rectangle where you draw the two lines means that from this step there can be two different paths, or what was the, yeah, that one.
That thanks. It means that there'd be another whole flow process there that we aren't necessarily going to write here. And I figured we wouldn't, just because we don't have that at all established yet. So we could kind of just indicate it. We get that there needs to be a flow. We all know we have to start testing.
Got it. And actually, I'm gonna, okay, PM, right, engineering. Yeah, here.
Yeah, kind of more like it would go here, I think.
Hmm.
Shouldn't that go right there? Like right on that same.
Why I had that up top is because at that point, engineering can technically begin working at the same time as the UI design is being finalized. So long as we still stick to the same wireframes, essentially. So those kind of work, those things can kind of happen concurrently. So that's why I had it up in its own section, essentially.
A caveat for that should be that can only happen if it's a high fidelity wireframe, right? It cannot be
Well,
from
right.
low files.
Right. So that wouldn't happen until wireframes are, completely approved, essentially. But so it's kind of the same logic behind the this other one that I put up here, that engineering can technically begin on anything backend related once all the requirements have been approved, essentially. So it's kind of a concurrent portion.
Oh, I see. You're just talking about the engineering part. Okay.
Yeah. So that would be like just for the engineering.
Okay.
And that's just obviously just like an overview, because I don't know what their actual process is like. But
I don't. Well, depending on the project, but I think the front end engineering only start working when the final high fidelity UI was approved, not before.
The reason why, the big downside to that is that that's going to extend the length of the project. And as long as the wireframes aren't changing, they can actually
that's a problem. We've experienced that when we were working with high fidelity prototypes, something changed, like for some reason. And then it would have been a pain in the ass excuse my language, for the developers if they had started working on it. So perhaps, that's another problem, that we shouldn't be changing anything after wireframes are.
So I mean,
So,
and this is probably a portion. Sorry, this is probably a portion that we obviously need. This may not be the right way to do it, and we can't dictate exactly how engineering works. But kind of right now, at the very least, at this stage, this would be the ideal system. But we'd obviously have to get on the same page with everybody else about like, hey, like if we're going to do it this way, then this process needs to be this way and stuff, and then we can adjust the process if needed. But like I said, I think the big problem with waiting until it's high fidelity is that it's really going to extend the length of the project more than anything.
Brings up another point, that it's times, definition of times, deadlines, all that stuff that should be of our interest should be probably at the beginning of this flowchart somewhere.
Definition of times, or do you mean like the deadline, or what do you mean by times?
Yes, deadlines.
Okay.
Time allocated for UX, time allocated for UI.
So ideally, that should be set up during the kickoff meeting with all the stakeholders from every team, in my opinion. But because also
could be a note in there. Traditionally, that's not where it's being defined, but I can see it working perfectly fine there.
So a big thing, and at least what I've experienced in the past when working on these type of projects, is that essentially, and I feel like this is something that the project manager should really be taking care of. But I've had essentially not giant, but like a complete requirements docs that are built and get updated frequently. But all of that information is listed in that same spot. And another good thing about that is that it helps keep the project organized, because if somebody has a question about something, they can go to that document and see that it's already been documented there, and certain things like that. But at least in my experience in the past, that's what those requirements documents were really great for, is that it talked about all the requirements from the back end side of engineering, all the requirements from the design team, from UX, timeframes, success criteria, all that information. So that might be something that might be, I don't know if it exists anywhere in the process at Bevy right now, but it has been useful in the past, so it might be something to consider too.
Yeah, I mean, I know I created grabbed this. I didn't create this. I grabbed this from something. But it's kind of what you're talking about, where up here I added in kind of how you could do that overlap so that you have the devs working right here on that back end stuff, and then here's where the front end, kind of what you were just saying, David.
So it will be one question. Let's say, and actually, I'm gonna share my screen because I'm recording, and I was not recording Figma. No. Okay. The best way to document all these processes is, of course, well, I think these visual flowcharts are great. And then for further details on each process, on each step, perhaps those should be in Confluence, like written documentation. I don't know, because I'm thinking about taking this flowchart and adjust it, like, adding, okay, who's responsible for what? The PM, owner should be, like different things that we're not listing here, and like who's approving here, or
I mean, I think that's all definitely things that need to be added at the end of the day. And it's also just, obviously a conversation that have to be had with everybody else involved in these projects as well, obviously. But that's, I mean, I think like this that I kind of started here with this flow chart, I feel is like just more, like I said, like I feel it's just kind of more of like if we can at least set up maybe like what the ideal process from our end would be.
right.
And then we can share that with engineering, share that with the project managers, and then, we can get their input and adjust as needed. But I think it's still helpful either way, to at least as a jumping off point, at least,
Yeah, exactly. And then to go back to Ernesto's point, each project has its own different flowchart. For example, there is one project that has already started because it was mostly backend stuff, and then it's particularly it's the integration. We are going to have a software integrated in Bevy, which is called Tray. And that software, what it will do, it's going to be in the dashboard, and it will integrate other software from the clients, and will interconnect data. So they already started doing that, like Carter, Chris, and then now that they have advanced with that, with all the project with the back end, and then they are now coming to the front end. So that's a different scenario where design is after. I mean, I was in the kickoff call just to understand what was going on, but then I'm like, okay, you don't need me for all this period of time. Now I'm back. And now I will check what's needed from design and then start this flow, perhaps. So yeah.
That sounds like a different process for something like that, for sure.
Yeah. Or the other example, as Ernesto said, the minimum changes to a part of UI or something that doesn't require all this type of all those steps. So since we don't have any, I mean, we have the document that Lisa created, but I wanted to have something that we checked all the team, and then once we agreed on a full flow, then, as David said, check with product and engineering on their side. Did anyone set the timer?
Yeah, I did. I was curious. I was curious. It's my first time on the Figma Jam.
It's fine. I was saying, I think this is a good start from what we have, and then I will work on this, come back to you with feedback, and then once we have this wrapped up, then create the other different flows for the different projects or problems. And I'm sorry, it was kind of not clear at the beginning of the meeting. But yeah, it was good that we center the focus on one specific flow, and then we could work and have something. I think it's
and sometimes I feel like sometimes we have to go through that maybe messy meeting to get to the meeting that feels really efficient. I think that's part of a normal process of a group, that there's some of both.
Yeah, and again, so many things missing, like we don't have the basic documentation in Bevy for design. We are creating this. We might assume this is like common sense or knowledge, but it's not, and we should put this written.
I think for onboarding, I think this is going to be very, very useful, but we're also going to have to include a lot of the CS people and include them in the process as well. So that process is definitely going to be very, very different.
Yes.
I think one thing that I look forward to is creating a process that's more company-wide, that includes even helping get projects on the roadmap and the process that would happen there, just to get a project kicked off, getting more conversations with CS, for example, like Tessa's team.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. But at least starting from our department, so have everything clear from our department, and then reach out to everybody, like say, hey, we think this is the process. What are you doing? How do you, get feedback?
Yep.
Okay, we have, you can set the timer now, Lisa. We have 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes left now.
All right, I'll do that. 0-5. And I'll say start.
Wow.
I know. It's like, oh, cool. We can have a timer. Like, you can time box things in your meeting. I like that.
Okay, I'm going to write down action items. Where I had a chart for that. Wait.
Oh, yeah, you did. It's with the green Post-its.
This
right
one,
here.
no? Action
Yeah.
items.
Yeah. Well, it says action items there.
Save it. It's kind of the middle of whatever. What? Can I write this down? Maybe I'll take the note here and I'll add it here. Yay. So, action items. Subheading. Okay. So, so we said that this whole flow was for a project, roadmap project. How would we define this? Roadmap project.
This would be more for, roadmap project updated or new features maybe.
New feature. Okay. So let me do something because it's driving me crazy. 1 second, please. There you go. Can't.
Oh, what was that?
Oh my God. What will happen if the timer reaches the 0? Will it shut us down or what?
No, I
Clears the
don't.
document. It deletes everything.
No.
I don't know.
It's making me
I
nervous.
think it's unlikely. I think a timer, like, it's used for time boxing in meetings, I would
Must be
think.
just a sound alert, nothing else.
Yeah.
Because you
I
can
We'll
mute
find
it.
out.
Flow. This is with double P. Please, people, correct me. No? Roadmapped. Is this
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Project.
These stamps are kind of cool.
Wow, like that.
Yeah.
Entonces, details more.
So this is kind of related to what we're doing now. The last meeting we had around user research, weren't we going to get a page in Confluence, and then once that was done, I was going to just move over our Miro notes?
See, I think we will be updating perhaps the page that you have started, Lisa.
Okay, so not creating a new page?
Maybe we can review it together.
Okay. Yeah, we can review it. Okay. Sounds good.
So, and once we do that, perhaps create a follow-up meeting.
Oh, there goes our timer.
Woohoo!
Okay.
Nice. Okay. Create a follow-up meeting.
Okay, how about, yeah, I can probably find time tomorrow to do that, and then.
No, tomorrow no.
Nope.
No. We'll discuss.
Oh,
But this is a great start.
okay.
I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay. Okay, thumbs up. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts?
I think that it's a good idea that we have a process documented. And I think the question that Ernesto, you had for just defining what we're documenting is also helpful. So I think it's worth continuing this project.
Okay.
Agreed.
Bueno, thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, have a great rest of the week. See you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.